Worku, there is an initiation that one can go through if one is willing. So we can talk more about that later on. Bill would certainly be a great resource for you to speak with on as far as a Westerner coming into the practice of the Tao in a more formal way, a formalized way.
Would you like for me to take a minute or two up front this morning and speak to that, Derek?
Sure, Bill. I think that'll be useful. Let me read the question off to you. This question is from Worku. Worku says, "Hi, I am new to Taoism, and I am wondering, is there a formal way to become a Taoist? Thank you."
Sure, be more than happy to.
Let's do that after we do the meeting beginning ritual. It is now 10:30 Pacific time, so we should probably get going.
Yes, indeed.
All right, everyone, let's go ahead and do it together. 起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬，一鞠躬，再鞠躬，三鞠躬，参加各位点传师一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬，请坐下。Please be seated. Bill, we're ready to rock and roll. I am going to mute my microphone now.
All righty, sir. Thank you. Pardon. First of all, let me welcome all of you who gathered together to share in this process of unfolding the Tao teachings, and tell you what a joy it is to see everyone here. I know I say that every Sunday, but it truly never ceases to amaze me how far this venture that Derek and I cooked up so many years ago has actually gone. I've been watching this and participating in it for years and years now, and it is truly one of the most wonderful things that I get to do, and I'm very privileged to be a part of it. On to the question regarding initiation. When one feels compelled to make a formal alignment of their life with the Tao teachings, and when they feel a deep resonance with the teachings of the I-Kuan Tao in particular, in our golden thread, and I'm going to surmise in most others, there is a brief initiation ritual that one can go through to publicly affirm that alignment. It's not a requirement that anyone be initiated. For myself, I had been talking to Derek for quite a long time, actually, from Indiana, back in the old MSN forum days and before, and had the opportunity to visit Los Angeles with my Tai Chi master, Master Huang, and because of the relationship that Derek and I had formed, long distance, as it were. I had an opportunity to hear and to begin to understand the more formal Tao teachings from the I-Kuan Tao. Prior to that in my life, all I knew was, and I was absolutely certain of this, was that there had to be a better answer than the answers that I was getting from the traditional Judeo-Christian traditions that I'd been involved with previously. Now that's not to say in any way that I'm denigrating those traditions or that they're not worthy of following. All I'm saying there is that for me personally, it didn't work out so well. I just was not finding what I needed there. When I visited the temple in LA, from the second I walked in the front door, I felt very deeply within me that I'd come home. It's all of you, I'm sure, can relate to this. When you were kids, your family would go visit your grandparents or a beloved relative of some description. For me, it was my grandma on my mom's side, and the feeling that I got when I walked into the temple was very much like the feeling I got as a child walking into my grandma's house. I knew there that I was safe and loved and cared for, and that I wouldn't get hurt there, among other things. And that was a place of sanctuary for me, a place where I was more free to be myself and to learn and to grow. My family life in my parents' house was not always pleasant, and so I had a great deal of affection for my grandparents, who took a lot of time taking care of me. I felt that same sense of kinship, if you will, of oneness, perhaps, of safety and nurturing, and the ability finally to explore and discover myself when I came into the temple. And that resonance that we speak of, that occurs deeply inside of a person, is what led me to that formal alignment with the I-Kuan Tao in particular, and the Tao studies in particular. And so if there are those among you for whom that resonance is as deep as it was for me, by all means, take the step and be initiated and formally align yourself with the temple. But if you're not sure, or if you don't know, or if you're just exploring, by all means, take the time to learn and to know and to understand. Avail yourselves of the ordained masters and of Derek. Those folks have a depth and wealth of knowledge that is, well, far beyond what anyone can get outside of the temple in this country. There's a vast oral tradition of Daoist teachings that goes along with the teachings of Lao Tzu and Chuang-Tzu, and some of the other lesser known authors, that just isn't available in the West commonly. And so to access that information almost requires knowing someone such as Derek, who really and truly understands those teachings. And so what it comes down to is how you feel and what you believe. Okay, it was that same resonance, that same compulsion, if you will, that call to do something more, that led me to become a Tiansu, a shrine owner. And I will continue down this path for the entirety of my life, and hopefully will encourage others to do the same. I've found answers and ways of doing things that have benefited me from day one. And so not only am I aligned with the people in the temple, but with the teachings, with the spirituality, with the processes, and those things benefit me continually. Part of that for me then is giving a bit back where and when I can, and for those who are compelled in that way to formally align themselves with the temple, I think probably do the same. But that's not a requirement either. Does that help? Hopefully, Derek, have I been clear? Have I explained that adequately?
Bill, I think that was excellent. I also want to share with everyone that on Bill's personal journey, he, along the entire way, he has been treading very carefully to not give in to the winds of the moments, because he wanted to be absolutely certain. So in being cautioned, he had two avenues that he was looking into. One was a very diligent study of all areas of spirituality, and so as an example, Bill is one of the people that can actually speak knowledgeably about the contents of the Bible. Many people only have a passing acquaintance with a few passages here and there. Relatively few people are crazy nowadays to go through the entire thing and to read it in critical fashion. So in that regard, both myself and Bill fit into that crazy category. We've both gone through it very carefully, and we've both demanded from ourselves that we understand exactly what it is that we are reading. What's it saying? Does it make sense? We want to comprehend it because we think that's what the original writers, of that holy script had intended for us, is to really understand. Now, the other powerful tool that Bill has in his arsenal is intuition. So intuition is different from rationality. It is different from book knowledge. It is something that you feel. It is something that's very deep in the gut, a certainty. So, and I'll say that when you're starting out on the path, you can't really trust your intuition all that much because there may be interference in terms of fear. It may be your fear talking, or it may be your wishful thinking that's talking to you, not the intuitive voice. After a while, though, through meditation, through self-knowledge and cultivation, you get better and better at it. So you learn to distinguish between the different voices within you, and you quiet the voice of fear and the voice of wishful thinking, and the only thing that remains is the voice of wisdom. That's intuition. So in Bill's path, he listens to his intuition, and these usually become very powerful and emotional feelings that you go through. And when it happens to other people, you don't feel it as much, but when it happens to you, though, it has a deep significance to you, you definitely get to a point where you know that it's not something that you can ignore. So this is what I have witnessed from the sidelines, watching Bill go through this entire process over several years. So I don't want to get in the way of Bill's presentation. And by the way, I want to let everyone know that Bill's path coming from martial arts into the Tao is very similar to the path that Ed Monahan has taken. So Sifu Bill and Sifu Ed are very similar, and I can later on I can tell some of my observations about Sifu Ed's path as well. So for now, though, I'm going to mute my microphone again so Bill can continue on with his presentation.
Thanks, Derek. I truly appreciate it. If we haven't really clearly answered your question, feel free to email me, and between Derek and I, we'll absolutely get you the answers you're looking for, and hopefully that was helpful to you. I'm going to tie it up right around 2 o'clock anyway, so that Derek has all of his time to get his lesson in. So we may not get through all of the Tao of Happy Meals today, but I promise this is one worth hearing, I think. Today we are going to talk about the Tao of Happy Meals. Happy Meals as an allegory for life. There is a culture in our country, in particular in the U.S., that I've come to refer to as the Happy Meal culture. And the reason for that is that I sat down with my wife, and while I was preparing for this week's talk, and just like I ask my kids every now and again, I looked at my wife and I said, "So what am I talking about this week?" And she looked at me and she said, "Happy Meals." And I, of course, sarcastically said, "You want fries with that?" And she explained that the Happy Meal culture is that culture of wanting life handed to us in a nice, neat little bow with a surprise at the bottom of the box. And I thought for a moment on that, and I thought, There absolutely is a Tao lesson, a Tao living lesson in that Happy Meal box. And so here we are. So what's the Happy Meal culture? Well, most everybody at some point in time or another has been in a McDonald's or a Burger King or whatever, the chain burger joints around, and they all have some form of a bundled up little kids meal, which hopefully gets the children to induce their parents to take them to that place and buy stuff for them. It's the culture of that instant gratification, the handing over of that little box that has something surprising and fun in it, even though it may not be worth whatever it was you paid for it. It doesn't make any difference. It's there, it's immediate, it's instant, and it's fun. And it's made to appear that way in the media everywhere we look, and all over the television. When it's time for the children to be near a radio, a TV, or whatever, the commercials are directed at them to get them to drag their parents off to McDonald's for that Happy Meal, whether it's healthy or not. It comes with little or no effort. It doesn't take too much for one to receive the Happy Meal. All you got to do is show up. And if you have somebody with you with a couple of bucks in their pocket, you can have your nice, neat little Happy Meal. It normally represents the path of least resistance. It's something you don't have to think about ordering. It is what it is. If that's what you want, that's what you get. It's neatly encapsulated, right? Comes in its own little box, no muss, no fuss. Once again, you just order it up and there it is. And it's symptomatic of meism. Now, this might become what my Tai Chi students like to call Billisms, and I do have them. Things that I've said for years and years and years and years by way of example or alliterative description to help people remember the things that are truly important. And this is one of those, the generation of meism. The focus on the manifestations, the desires for whatever it is that makes me happy in this moment. We can talk about these things in terms of children, right? The largest consumers of the Happy Meals, if you will. Unfortunately or fortunately, or just because it is, that culture extends way beyond childhood into the adult years for very many people. We live in a society, particularly in the U.S., where immediacy, gratification, availability, access, and desires are all met very nearly instantaneously, no matter what the topic is. If we get a cold, we take antibiotics. If we're hungry, we may not get the Happy Meal, but we get the number 7 with onions and pickles or something. We go for the convenience every time. It's how you get little tiny grocery stores and gas stations. When I was a kid, at gas stations, you got a guy who came out and pumped your gas for you, checked your oil, washed the windshield, all of that. But you couldn't buy a sandwich there to save your life. Of course, back then, gas only cost $0.25 a gallon, too, so how time changes things. Still, we seek that path of least resistance through life. We love encapsulation. Progressive Insurance is making a killing right now off of encapsulation. The bundling of like things together for the convenience of the consumer. You can get your house, your car, your boat, your RV, your car, and everything else insured all at once, supposedly for a budget premium. What a wonderful thing. And that's retail in general. It's also what has come to be consuming a huge part of the television bandwidth, the ever-popular infomercial, the latest 1995 whiz-bang gadget that you just can't live without. I saw one a few days ago about a bacon bowl maker. as if we don't have enough fat and cholesterol in our respective diets, we now need a device that makes bowls out of bacon. Cringe at the thought. I can tell you I will never own a bacon bowl maker. Even if I ate the bacon, I wouldn't own a bacon bowl maker. That's the maximum extent of our own excess. The culture of meism is pandemic. It is. Our society has become riddled with conflict and contention and litigation and derision and fights and every other form of negative emotionalism because of the culture of meism. You know, when I was a kid in school, a principal in an elementary school could still spank you. And okay, I'm not a proponent of violence, but every now and again a kid would do something that warranted a bit of attention getting on the seat. These days, if you put a hand on a kid in school, you get sued for everything you're worth and then some. The responsibility for the actions of our children no longer inures to the child but to the parent. And the educators and the clerics and the daycare providers and all of the other people that come into contact with them dare not touch them because of the ever-present and almighty lawsuit. It's the supposition that my child or I can do no wrong, that you're all there to serve me. And if I don't like what you do, then I'll haul you into court and take everything you own. It is absolutely the focus on the manifestations, the stuff, the things. You know, the competition from one neighbor to the other to have the bigger, nicer house or the bigger, newer car or the latest lawnmower or whatever. We may all be mortgaged to the absolute hilt, but by golly, we got a BMW in the driveway. Now, do I have a problem with having a BMW in the driveway? No, I don't. As long as that's within the means of the person who owns it. If, however, the stuff controls our lives, then there's a problem. If we're one paycheck away from losing the house and the Beamer both, are we really being good stewards of what we have? Are we really contented? Question to ponder. The Happy Meal culture is contentious. It is conflicted both within and without. The folks who are so eager to go to court against their neighbors also usually have no idea what makes them happy. It's unfortunate, but the opinion, the belief, the value that the trappings of success are the things that bring about happiness is virtually also pandemic. And the trappings only give us more things to be worried about. We have the appearance of virtue or goodness, but underneath very often we are rotten to the core. We're kind to our families, to our relatives, to our kids, to our neighbors' faces, and we turn around and walk away from them muttering the most vile things and contemptible words that we can think of because the guy let his dog poop in our front yard again. We threaten, we cajole, we coerce, we leverage, and do all of these things to the people that we care about while smiling at their faces and sharpening the daggers. We are forever trapped in our own illusions, the illusions of power and of ownership and control. Those things are what allow the ego self to drive people to ruin. None of them are real. None of them last. The BMW in the driveway, the house on that beautiful lot in that gated community, the clothes, the pills, the stuff, none of it lasts. It's all transient. It's an illusion. If you think it's going to last, drive by any neighborhood that's been around longer than 50 years. I guarantee you it doesn't look like what it looked like when it was built. Power and control, those can be easily seen for the illusions that they are. And yet we think we have power over other people and control of our own circumstances. In point of fact, we don't own anything. We don't have power over anything or anyone. And the only thing that we can ever control is what we choose to do. If we choose to control another, now we're manipulating and contriving, and that never ends well. That's the Happy Meal culture. And the Happy Meal culture isn't new either. It's been around a long time, longer than the Happy Meal. And supplanting the Happy Meal culture to reason, to the spiritual self, isn't new either. Okay? It's been around for as long as there have been human beings on this planet. The ancient sages wrote about these very things. The ancient Greek philosophers wrote about the misspent youth of their time, of the way that the younger generation abused and wasted their time, their resources, and their educations to go out and goof off and do the things that teenagers always do. None of those things are any different than they've ever been, and yet every generation whines and moans and complains about it. Well, okay, that's just part of living. Likewise, learning to give up the emotional attachments, learning to give up the desires, learning to find and nurture the true self isn't new either. But it is the beginning of maturing the path of the Tao. It's the first step towards getting out of the ego self and into the true self. And knowing oneself is the first step in mastering the ego self. It is the first and most important step in getting out of out from behind the Happy Meal culture. Okay. Chapter 33 of the Tao Te Ching spells that out just as clearly as crystal. Those who understand others are intelligent. Those who understand themselves are enlightened. Those who overcome others have strength. Those who overcome themselves are powerful. Those who know contentment are wealthy. Those who proceed vigorously have willpower. Those who do not lose their base endure. Those who die but do not perish have longevity. The last two lines are not speaking about immortality in the physical body, and I, for one, am thankful they're not. I'm only 56, and I'm a whole bunch less attractive and in shape than I was 20 years ago. If I could become immortal in this body, I'm afraid it'd be a curse and not a blessing. But these few short lines from the Tao Te Ching address the very thing that the Happy Meal culture attempts to build. It is much more important that we understand ourselves than others. By understanding ourselves, we learn restraint, maybe some compassion, maybe an attitude of thankfulness and gratitude. If we can overcome ourselves, then we can supplant our bad habits and our negative ego-driven emotional states and our contentious and conflict-based nature to something better, the will of the true self. Once again, the compassionate heart, the humble and contrite attitude, the desire to care for others rather than to beat them into the ground. To proceed vigorously down a path of virtue and goodness. Not the virtue and goodness of contrivance and manipulation, but the natural virtue and goodness that springs forth from the Tao is a wonderful thing. To have the energy to be vigorous at that pursuit is a tremendous blessing. And this is a teaching that is eminently real, instantly attainable, and immediately visible. The longer I study the Tao teachings, the longer I try to apply them and understand them and work with them and use them, the more energy I have, literally. And I find that the more time I spend considering the Tao teachings and cultivating the Tao teachings and trying to apply these teachings in my life, that the more time I have to do that. It's almost a trick of the time-space continuum, in that I am unbelievably busy between 5 in the morning and about 9 o'clock in the evening, but the one thing I'm busiest at is trying to cultivate the Tao teachings. And yeah, somewhere in there comes earning a living and taking care of my family, but those two things are under the umbrella of cultivating the Tao teachings. And so the thing that I've made the most important in my life is now propping up everything that comes after it. Folks may say that's a selfish attitude, to take care of myself first, to attend to my spiritual needs first, to make sure that I'm cultivating the Tao teachings first. But I'm going to tell you all truthfully, if I did not do those things, I would not be the person that you're listening to right now, and in fact, I may not be here at all. It is not contrary to the flow of the Tao to make sure that one's own life is properly focused and motivated. It's absolutely necessary. And these teachings are not only being cultivated by me, but are cultivating me into the person that I should become. The base that we are encouraged not to lose is that foundation of the Tao teachings. The root that secures us to the earth and to the heavens. The foundation that holds up our spiritual house. Jesus said that a house built on the sand cannot stand. Definitely true. If you build your house on a beach, sooner or later it's going to fall over. And that happens in Florida and California and the Carolinas with remarkable frequency. But a house whose foundation is on the bedrock will stand forever, figuratively speaking. So what does it mean, those who die but do not perish have longevity? Well, I'm 2 minutes after 2, so we're probably going to have to talk about that next week. But that would be a nifty question to look up and study. Let me go to my summary here just for a moment. I'd like to focus on the first couple of these for this week, if I may. The first one says that mastering the self is the foundation of mastering the Tao teachings. That's absolutely the truth. But what one discovers, I believe, as they're attempting to master the Tao teachings is that those two things go hand in hand. Not one before the other nor one after the other, but concurrently, kind of like walking the path with a trusted friend side by side. Understanding and mastering the self sometimes comes out of attempting to understand and master the teachings. It causes us to ask the questions about ourselves that give us the opportunities for truly deep introspection that reveal things that need to change. Second, the process of refining the self, giving up the ego self, and leading that truly virtuous life are the Tao path. If one is seeking a path that follows the Tao teachings and does not include those refinements, I'm afraid that that path is in error. It is only by engaging in those processes, I think, that one finally gains the ability to overcome the self. and in so doing eventually become enlightened. Thank you all very much for letting me chat with you this morning. I do truly enjoy doing this, and I hope that something I've said was helpful.
Bill, awesome. Thank you so much. Let me ask everyone for their feedback and convey those back to you.
Thank you.
And while we're waiting on feedback, I will also go ahead and switch over to Carmen for her segment. By the way, you are exactly on track today, Bill. What I did was that I adjusted the schedule a little bit. So for you, it will be half an hour exactly, from 10:35 Pacific to 11:05 Pacific.
Very good. Thank you.
So from Alex, great talk, Bill. Let me go ahead and change us over to Carmen. So Bill from Rui, thank you so much, Bill. Awesome presentation as always.
Thank you.
And there's Carmen. Go ahead and mute my microphone. Please feel free to proceed whenever you like.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone, and good morning. My topic today is called copycats. So as it was interesting, Bill mentioning how he was coming to the decision of what topic he would present to you this morning. Similarly, I usually go through the same exercise throughout the week of thinking what I want to share, what's on my mind. And for ease of convenience for me, and also for you guys, I hope, is I'm going to be going back into my archives, as I mentioned. And one of the most appropriate topics that I found is this one on copyright infringement. Especially as in creating my Carmen's Corners, I often want to include multimedia and other sources that I hope will enhance my presentation and as well as make your morning more engaging. Now, back in August of 2010, I saw this fantastic movie, and it included a short film before the main preview, or the main movie, called Day and Night. So I thought it was so perfect, and I really wanted to share it with you. And then I started looking into it and seeing that, well, it's copyright protected, obviously. Pixar is a corporation that's affiliated with Disney, and they obviously have a vested interest in protecting their copyright. In fact, the copyright extension law that recently passed is also sometimes labeled the Disney Copyright Act because it's extending Disney's copyright, even though Disney himself passed away many years ago. Now they can continue to use the exclusive rights of the property for another 100 years. So we'll see how that happens. But as I was looking into it, I realized that there's a lot of copyright infringements. This is an older item, but there are constantly things in the news about copyrights. And I'm interested in it in terms of private property and how that relates to intangibles. So private property is a whole different conversation topic that I'd like to get into in the future, and that really more relates to the land that you may be sitting on and owning. That's a very interesting topic for me as well, but today I'm mainly thinking about this idea of intellectual property and what is fake and what is real and who gets the money of goods that are sold under false pretense. Now, just a little bit of background and history. In researching my presentation, I went back and looked at some historical items, and it looks like we're having a little bit of problems here, so give me one moment. It's unfortunate. It looks like we've lost a connection. I'm not sure if anybody in the audience can hear me. It looks like some folks have dropped out. Bill, are you
Carmen,
online? Can you hear me?
I'm still audio just fine. Yeah, Carmen, I can hear you. I do not see your screen. Hear you fine.
I'm not sure what happened with the screen then. Let me look again.
It may just be a matter of resharing your screen, be able to turn that back on.
Yeah, I think you might need to do that.
Okay. So what I'll do is that I'll change the presenter back to myself and then to you.
Okay.
That should do it.
Hopefully, while we're replaying the screen here we go. I think bottom line I wanted to share with you here is that there's been a huge increase, exponential increase in patents and patent applications since the Industrial Revolution, essentially. So once people began to make their ideas tangible and put them out into the world and generate a profit, obviously they had an interest in protecting it. And so I have some information that you can look up in the online version of this that you can go and do some more research. But what I found mainly that really influenced the availability of patents and the exponential explosion of them is that, like many innovations, it all started with a book. And in fact, I have another presentation that I've been looking at in terms of knowledge and the printing press and how influential that was, essentially opening up the age of technology that we're currently living in. So a brief little history. A gentleman very much ahead of his time, John Milton, wrote this agitprop of sorts, this pamphlet advocating freedom of speech, essentially. So he was presenting this to the Parliament of England in the year 1644. So way back when, where he was saying, you know, we really just need to be able to protect freedom of speech, and you can't, you know, copyright everything in existence and then prevent others from either using that information or arguing against it. Unfortunately, he was a little too before his time because Parliament, for the most part, rejected his conclusions. That said, the arguments that he made in this tract were really influential for future foundations of thought that would come after and others that would propose freedom of speech. And in fact, one of the most influential outcomes was its influence on our own U.S. Constitution. So in the late 1700s, in 1790, the U.S. passed the Columbian Centennial, the U.S. Copyright Act of 1790, and it encouraged this act as an act for enlightenment of learning by securing the copies of maps, charts, and books to the authors and proprietors of such copies during their tenure. So in a sense, giving those authors who spent a lot of time gathering information some protection over that effort. But over the years, as freedom, as they say on the internet, wants to be free, of course it's become a little bit more of a Wild West. And you may remember Napster. I for sure do. I was in college when it came onto the scene, and it was a godsend in a sense because we got to explore so much music over the internet, sharing files. Obviously, that was technically illegal because of the copyright issues that the artists and the publishers had over their information. And yeah, we still had thousands of files available to us before, and artists that we would never have been introduced to because of, you know, being poor college students. There's only so much money that you can use to go to the record store, as it were. Also, being in college, a big topic of conversation and discussion was plagiarism. So that act of presenting another's work or idea as your own. So it's one thing to steal files and not pay for them. It's a whole other issue to take somebody's information and words and pretend that they're your own. I know I'm always conscious of that. And what I thought was interesting, I'll play for you the day and night clip at the end of my presentation. But Wayne Dyer, who you may know as a very influential speaker, in May of 2010, he sued, or rather he was sued by Stephen Mitchell because he was accused of plagiarism, of taking 200 lines of his interpretation of the Tao Te Ching for Dyer's own book, The Living Wisdom of the Tao, and Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. I found that fascinating that there was this connection between my investigation of copyrights and starting with the day and night clip. And in the clip, you'll see that Wayne Dyer is the voice of the the animation, essentially. And yet there was this big controversy that they were going under at that time that I was watching that movie. Meanwhile, of course, there's a chapter of the Tao Te Ching that I've extracted from our good friend here, Derek Lin, who freely provides this information on the Daoism.net website. You may have to poke around a little bit, but it's there and available for your use. So this effort that he took to translate the Tao Te Ching is available to all. That said, if you want some of his commentary, you either have to stay tuned to these meetings on Sundays over the internet, or I would highly suggest you go out and purchase his books, which contain many of his thoughts. So there's a certain amount of effort in taking that translation and making it so, and even more effort in taking the thought and putting those thoughts down in a coherent manner within a bound publication. So that idea of plagiarism, I think, is very interesting, especially, in translation. That's a different issue than in the interpretation. So just to read this chapter segment, I think it will provide some insight into my following presentation. Who can offer their excess to the world? Only those who have the Tao. Therefore, sages act without conceit, achieve without claiming credit. They do not wish to display their virtue. This passage has been really sitting on my mind as I can, think about what that means in terms of this new landscape that we live in of intellectual property, and it's just so easy to copy paste a link from the internet and put it into your presentation, as I often do. I'm often reminded of this Picasso quote that bad artists copy and good artists steal. This is a mural in downtown Seattle, which I love. So it's Guernica, Picasso's masterpiece, and somebody else's masterpiece on top of it. So it's a really beautiful work of urban art. Another really beautiful work of appropriating others and not even your own use is the mashup idea. This was a little more popular back in the day, but there's still so many artists that incorporate cuts from other artists into their music. And I highly recommend Danger Mouse. This Grey album was very, very influential and talked about because he took the Beatles and Jay-Z, so the Beatles' White Album and Jay-Z's Black Album, and mixed them together to create something wholly new and different. I highly recommend it. But at the time, of course, he was not really able to get the copyrights for the Beatles, but yeah, he was able to get the vocal-only tracks for Jay-Z's album. He wanted somebody to go out there and do something with them, otherwise he wouldn't have made that available. So it's interesting, taking information that exists and making it into your own. We obviously see that now as this user-created content. Big company Google has bought up YouTube, and that's a big part of their marketing. And in fact, we live in an information era where we freely give away our rights to our information for the convenience of using posts in Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and all of those social media outlets that you may participate in. Those companies are generating profits off of your content, but we allow that because we find convenience and joy out of using some of their services. In addition, I've been thinking a lot about the idea of fair use, because this copyright, freedom of information, freedom of speech, rights that are actually in ink in the judicial sphere can be fairly construed in different ways. Something that recently happened was, you may have seen in the news, this prank, as it were, in Los Feliz, in Los Angeles there, of the dumb Starbucks. So essentially it was a Starbucks, except that everything in front of it just said dumb. So there was the dumb venti latte, the dumb Nora Jones duet CDs at the front of the counter. The aprons had the Starbucks logo, but everything said dumb. And that lasted for a week, and it became an obvious huge social media affair, to the point where they finally came out and said, well, yes, this guy that works for Comedy Central is behind it, and it's all his deal. And, it got shut down not because of the lawyers from Starbucks saying you can't do this, but rather he never really got his health permits, and so the health department came and shut him down. And I just want to read you a quote from his frequently asked questions here. I know it may be hard to read on your screen, or if you're at the temple yourself today. Forgive me as I travel to the link on my page where I can read it myself. And he's saying, are you saying Starbucks is dumb? No, not at all. In fact, we love Starbucks and look to them as role models. Unfortunately, the only way to use their intellectual property under fair use is if we are making fun of them. So the dumb comes out of necessity, not enmity. I still kind of don't understand what's going on here, because clearly he could have simulated a Starbucks experience and called it completely something different, different colors, different branding. But they love Starbucks so much that they wanted to be able to use it, but then they had to make fun of it to be able to use it. So I don't buy that there was no money transactions being taken place. Look at this photo. I mean, there's cameras and he's getting a lot of attention and he works for a network. So this idea of making an honest living, there are people like Derek who, produce their work in their office, and they, stay up late and have a day job and get up early and do it on the off hours. And then there's people who, like this Nathan guy with the dumb Starbucks, that is his job essentially. He is making a living off of it, and whether it's fair or not, it's certainly not up to me. I guess the lawyers will have an opinion about it soon. So with that, I'm going to wrap up my presentation. And that mural, the idea of recognizing the creator, I think always in this whole endeavor, the idea is if you come up with something original, it never really is original. It all originates from the Tao. But we are only conduits, and some of us better conduits than others. So that, thank you. And if I still have some remaining time, I'd like to play for you that day and night video, which I think is really beautiful. So here we go.
Tenho ouvido igual ao seu. Eu consumo a mim. Saiba que isto em mim provoca imensa dor. Só privilegiados têm ouvido igual ao seu.
I'm trying to turn the volume down so I can finish up this conversation. So 2 things to add as I wrap up. I actually did purchase this video. I've noticed that they cut out the Wayne Dyer clip from the middle of it. And I had 2 hard drive crashes between then in 2010. So I've actually lost the file that had the copyright laws on it. But this is on YouTube, so you can go and watch it yourself. And then finally, just wrapping up, you did not miss, or rather you did miss one important version of that experience, that this movie was in 3D, and it was fantastic in 3D. So even with sharing that online with you, it doesn't always mean that everything came out perfect. So with that, I think I'm a little over time. Thank you, everyone, and I appreciate your attention.
Thank you so much, Carmen. I'll be switching the screen back to my side in just a moment. You need to relay the feedback to you from Alex. Great presentation, Carmen. Thank you, Carmen. That was a really interesting presentation and a nice prop at the end. Derek, this reminds me of the story about the warriors, where the shields appear to be different initially, but were actually. So that's very insightful there. Thank you, Alex. And from Mark, great in portrayal. Thanks. So think about night and day as yin and yang. That's another insight there. Thanks for that, Mark. Also, belated feedback for Bill for more insights into I-Kuan Dao in the talk on living in harmony in the Tao. And also from Worku, Bill, very solid information, very good information. And let me see what else. Very good synopsis. This is from Lawrence. Very good synopsis of intellectual property law. Lawrence should know, he's a lawyer. And so Mark also, Mark says, I tried the variation of Carmen's pasta last week. It turned out well. So excellent. From Chris, thank you, Carmen. This was thought-provoking presentation to the concept of owning ideas in the Tao. From Tim. From Julie, thank you, Carmen. From Julie and Gary. Okay, wow. Okay, I think we're ready to take a break. So we'll be through the meeting. It is now 11:30, almost exactly. Let's go ahead and take 5 minutes. We'll be delving into chapter 19. I am going to switch the video over to my side. And I will park it on a screenshot of Mark's Facebook for this meeting.